For those of us who are just joining and don't know who Jayne is, she is a legend. She is a mentor to me. She is a friend. She has been one of the joys of my career is meeting her. Barbara Peters at Poison Pen put us together for an event. And then we spent the pandemic together interviewing all of the staff at Poison Pen for a series of Behind the Pen. It was a lot of fun, and we discovered we have a whole lot in common and really enjoy talking about writing together and helping each other out with our books. And, it's just been a fabulous several-year relationship that I treasure. So it's so exciting to be able to share her with you today.
Well,
Yay!
it's exciting to be here. I don't get out much, so these are as a writer, you know how that goes. I spend a lot of time alone, so it's always good to get together and chat. But yeah, it's good to see you again. And I absolutely loved Last Scene.
Yay, last scene! It's released.
Talk about a real
last scene.
Yes, it's gorgeous. It's just a wonderful psychological thriller. Except that it's more than that because it's got a real gritty edge to it.
It does have a gritty edge.
You went dark on this one.
I did. It's very dark. It is a little darker than my normal fare because I have a narrator who is a monster. And
Well, there you go.
yeah, I haven't had, my earlier books I did have not first person, but I had point of view characters from the serial killer or the villain or whatever. And I haven't done it in a while. And so my standalones, I don't think anybody's really heard that kind of voice. And that's really the voice of the earlier books. And yes, it has come across a little bit darker than what people are used to. But that's okay. That's all good.
Yeah.
Make it darker has been my hashtag for this book because, if you're going to do it, lean in.
Yeah.
Scott Brick reads that. Yeah. He's the monster in the audiobook, and it is creepy. He leaned in.
Okay. Well, it works. It's just a very exciting thriller, and it's a very the problem with a lot of thrillers is that they don't really know how to end them. Because you keep going down a dark hole, and then it's like, oh, there's no good way back out of this. So I think you found the resolution. You found the recovery, and the trauma for the past is going to be there, but your characters are able to move into the future. And
Right.
I think that's what it needs to make it work, because you don't want to think everybody goes through all this horrible trauma and then dies. Can't do it.
It's interesting. I was talking with somebody yesterday about crime thrillers in general. They're like, why do you do this? They're so dark and they're so evil. And why would you even want to write about that? And it's the hope. It's the hope at the end where
Yes.
we've overcome this horrible trauma.
Yeah.
And there is a future with it. And this book, as dark and unrelenting as it can be, there is hope at the end and resolution and justice and I hate the word closure. And closure is not my favorite term, but it really does have that kind of surprising yet inevitable. And then we move into where things can go. And that's super important to me. Do you think so too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's why fiction even exists. It's to teach you that you can overcome the worst. And I think beyond that, you do it with the old heroic virtues,
Right.
of courage and determination and a belief in the healing power of love and loyalty and the classic virtues, not even if your character's getting therapy on the side, that's fine. But when it came right down to crunch time, she needs the courage, she needs the determination, she needs, that's what you want to call on. And I think that's what we read for, because we want to think that, God forbid, we should be in such a situation. We do what had to be done. We would do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There, but for the grace of God, right?
Yeah. And that feeling of doing the right thing, I think we come back to genre fiction for that again and again.
There is
That's
a level of satisfaction out of seeing the resolution. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. Um, You were really good at diverting the attention away from you. Um, but we're gonna also talk about look at that gorgeous cover.
I
Look
love
at
that
that.
cover.
It's
I'm
insanely gorgeous. Oh, I
yeah.
just got a whoops. I turned that one away right in time. Had a bad word in that text. Oops. One of my friends doesn't know I'm live right
Oh,
now. Um, so It Takes a
yeah,
Psychic is a harmony novel.
yeah.
And I want you to tell us about your harmony world where you have created this incredible story and Leona and dust bunnies. And I want to hear all the things. So tell us a little bit about this book.
Okay, I write this under my Jane Castle name, but it's actually on the cover. It says in very big print, Jane Krentz writing is Jane Castle. It's not exactly a secret. Um, and just as a sideline here, if there's any aspiring authors out there, I do not advise pen names. Do not go there, but that's another issue. But having lived with 3 pen names now for several years, I can tell you it's a nightmare.
Mhm.
You cannot promote 3 names in this modern world. Okay, that's my
Listen to your
public.
Aunt Jane. Listen to
This
your
is my
Aunt Jane, children.
this
So
is my
true.
PSA of the day. So back to the book I am writing, sort of under Jane Castle. Um, this is actually the kind of story I wanted to write way back at the start of my career, and I actually tried to write and I wrote 3 books actually under the Jane Ann Krentz name, and they all, as they say, people stood around the block not to buy that book. so so I nearly killed off my Jane Ann Krentz. Well, I did kill off my Jane Ann Krentz career
Early
early on
on.
by trying to write um, a futuristic romantic suspense. There was no market for it, which is another lesson to be learned. It's being ahead of curve is not always the best place to be. You want to catch a wave, not get run over. Yeah. Uh,
You're already up in the dunes at this point.
but eventually, I got a chance to try it again under the other name, and this time at work, thank goodness. And it has what I did. This is an interesting problem because I was not interested in building a terribly fantastical separate environment. What I wanted was human beings interacting in a normal way on another planet with a few of the rules changed,
Mhm.
because they were isolated from Earth. They could no longer go back to Earth. So I wanted a sense of a society that had rebuilt itself from having come back from the brink and rebuilt itself. And that allowed me to put the technology to about today's level of technology. I didn't have to invent super fabulous technology. But the twist is that paranormal energy of all sorts is very strong and very powerful on the planet. And the human beings have adapted to that and have developed their latent psychic senses have become non-latent, become stronger. So that gives me the twist I need to, well, for one thing, solve crimes without a lot of forensics. I don't have to
Mhm.
do the police detective work, um, because I've always favored, even in my contemporary and my historical and now in my futuristic, I've always loved the amateur sleuth. Maybe they've got some skills, but they're not detectives. They're not,
Not trained in it.
yeah, they're not law enforcement that has to run by certain rules and use certain
Rules
techniques. Yeah. Yeah. They can operate outside the box, as we
outside the
say.
box.
And the psychic thing gives them an edge that, because my theory is, as in the title, which is it takes a psychic, obviously the rest of it is to hunt a psychic because otherwise it's going to look like the perfect murder, the perfect crime, whatever you're trying to investigate. So I just love that extra woo woo factor. But as you and I were discussing, I do want to warn people who are interested in my books that this is not supernatural stuff. I use the psychic vibe, but I see it as 1 or 2 steps beyond intuition.
Right. It
So
is paranormal. This is classic paranormal. It's also
Yeah.
urban fantasy. You've actually so this is why this series works so incredibly well. Not only have you taken straight paranormal, which is not something that we see a lot anymore, and the urban fantasy, you also have the mystery. So you're mashing 3 genres together and the amateur sleuth. So you have and romance. I mean, so these books are bigger than just one label. You can't just put them on one shelf. You could put them in multiple places. Did you ever bump into bookstores and booksellers not knowing where to put you?
Yeah, that happens. I mean, they are bookstores and libraries. The name of the game is you have to be able to find it, and that
Yeah.
means putting it under a reliably, a place where you know the patron or the buyer is going to look. And so if you've written a book that has multiple appeals, it gets tricky for them to find a place to file it, basically, is what it comes down to. So, s what there's a word for that, what do we call it? Search,
Discoverability.
discoverability. Yeah, discoverability.
Discoverability. And
Yeah,
that I mean, it's everything. Discoverability and distribution, the 2 Ds. Without that, books don't go anywhere. It doesn't matter how
yeah.
great they are, right? If nobody knows they exist, they're very hard to sell. And
Yeah.
that's that's just a time-honored thing about sales in general, and that's why we need such good marketing to be able to create the need for the product you didn't know you needed, but now you see it and you want it. That's what marketing is, and I think we've both been lucky to have good marketing and PR campaigns behind us at times to raise awareness, and then you build
Yes.
a readership, and then you get to just get to your readership, but you always wanna grow, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we've lost a lot of the familiar ways of discoverability because
Yeah,
um, I'm old enough to remember that there was a time in this country when every single mall in America, and there was a mall in every town,
yeah.
had a Walden Books and a B. Dalton's.
Yep.
And and they had their little stands out front, every week. The new books were all arranged. You couldn't miss them as you walked by on the way to the next store, and that was discoverability at its best, actually.
It's really interesting. I hit hard in Borders when I first came out. They loved me. So B. Dalton was starting to wind down. Borders was really starting to
Yeah.
to kick up, and Barnes was starting to fall off, and Borders was really becoming the big bookstore, and Anderson's was selling into them, and I was doing really great. They closed at my 4th book, and my sales went
Yeah. There was
because
no
that
there was no replacement.
no, nothing
Is this
stepped into its void,
nothing,
and
and that was the same thing with Walden's before it. There was nothing that took over. Yeah.
nothing took over, and you've seen I've been in this 20 years, you've been in it a little bit longer. You've seen a lot of changes in the industry. Is there
Yeah.
something that has completely shocked you? You're like, "I would have never foreseen this."
The gatekeepers are gone. The gatekeepers always, always, always were there, and they were maddening to have to get past, the trying to find an agent, trying to find an editor, trying to just get a toe in the door because there was only one way to get published, and that
Mhm.
was through New York, and that was in paper and hardcover. There was no options. There were no options, and the gatekeepers were in the way. If you couldn't convince an agent to represent you, you probably weren't gonna be able to reach an editor,
Yeah.
or if you reached an editor, you weren't going to get read by that editor, you were gonna get read by people who got hired to go through what they called the slush
The
pile.
slush pile. Yep.
It was so flukish getting published, and so dependent on sudden swings in the marketplace. And that's one of the things that I had as an advantage of my career at the start was that I mean, I wrote for 6 years before I got published.
Did you? I didn't know
But
that.
what happened in the 6th year was that the New York suddenly wanted romance. And so I was finally standing on the right corner when the bus went by. Um, and that's I mean, that's the kind of luck that you had to have actually in those days. And now it's much more of an entrepreneurial business. Individual authors have a lot of responsibility for getting the books out there and publishing them, and then marketing them.
marketing them and yeah, that's actually been a huge change since I started because, the first year I was out, Facebook didn't exist.
Yeah.
And it was just a college network, and we
Yeah.
had a group called Killer Year, and one of the guys was a professor, and he invited everybody on Killer Year into Facebook. It was still the Facebook then. It was still the
Oh,
Facebook. It hadn't even dropped the. Um, and now, the social media campaigns it used to be also you couldn't sell your own book on social media. Remember that? That
yeah.
was a nice little 5-year period where you were talking into a void.
Yeah.
Now, y you're so right, the gatekeeping is yeah, it is gone, and the whole point is to reach the readers directly, and we have all the tools to do that. Social media, email. You've had a newsletter forever. I mean, forever and ever and ever. I've had one since my first, my very first event. I had a notebook out there for people to give me their email addresses, right?
Yeah.
And I've got people still on my list from that first event, which is super cool. But it's something I've been trying to explain to some people recently is the shift in marketing and PR to directing everything to the reader versus the old school way was directing it to the account. The trade reviews were
Yeah.
designed for the libraries and the booksellers to know which books to pay attention to.
That's
You
true.
know,
Yeah. There was no way of reaching the reader.
no, there wasn't. And the minute authors were able to start reaching their readers directly, all the power shifted to us.
Yeah.
All of it shifted to us.
And all the work.
Unfortunately, on that side, then the work comes along with that because, yeah, it is a lot of work. I mean, we talked about that before we went live. I've been for the past, 2 months, I've been killing myself. And this week, I had 8 events this week. It's been crazy.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's so much fun because I'm talking directly to readers and I'm talking directly to my friends and my writer friends and stuff. I mean, that's huge for I think the future of where books are going. It's going to be a direct relationship, whether we want it or not.
I think it does lead to what they call silo reading, though. People, for one thing, books are expensive
Right.
at every yeah. Um, and unless you are limiting your reading only to the books on sale, which is fine, but that's what we used to call the used bookstore market, basically.
The remainder market.
Yeah, yeah, and that's always been there. But if you're looking for the next book from your favorite writer or the next thriller because you read thrillers or you read romance or you read mystery or suspense, um, in addition to trying to find it, the discoverability thing, I think that the average reader doesn't is afraid of experimenting because it's going to be A, expensive, and B, a waste of time is a factor. How much time are you going to invest in a book that you turn 3 pages in and you don't like it anymore? That
Right. Right. Yeah, the digital world has changed that tremendously.
yeah,
For those of you who don't know, the remainder market, when we're joking about used bookstores and remainders, so it used to be you got a print run and they printed all the books that they were going to sell in advance of the book coming out. And, when the tour was over, you had your month, to really be out there, and then it was done, and those books, they would sell for a little while, but then the bookstores would send them back. They still do that, but they send them back, and then the publisher would remainder them, which meant you could buy the book, yourself at a steep discount, and then they sold it back into the accounts for them to sell at, $2. So anytime you went into a bookstore, there was always the remainder shelf that had those $2 hardcovers or,
yeah, yeah,
50% off, all of that. And that's how a career ends. you know, that is, I saw a lot of my friends have that happen, right? They didn't earn out their print runs and those books got remaindered and they disappeared. And a lot of them have reinvented themselves with new pen names and stuff. But it is really, it used to be a much different world. Now the books are always going to be in print because we have digital and audio
yeah,
has become such a huge component of this.
yeah. The
I
audio is
mean,
really, uh, this has been just a huge growth area for the market for the past 10 years. It's been amazing. My background is as a librarian, and when I was in library school, and afterwards, audio was seen as something only for the blind or the visually impaired.
Right. Yep.
That was the only reason you stocked audio in the library, and that was and for one thing, the audio version of anything was very expensive, and so only a institution like a library could afford $40 for a copy of,
Yeah.
every book. So, so if you were reading audio in those days, you were strongly suspected of trying to avoid reading a real book. So it had a certain kind of a stigma to it if you for regular unless you were visually impaired. That was
Yeah.
um, but boy, that's all blown away now. It's just
Yes, the technology has made it so accessible and so
yeah,
easy. Yeah, I remember when they changed and they started doing the book on tape that you already it came with the headphones and stuff, and that was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a low price entry to the audiobook market. This is gonna change everything." And it did. Then we get MP3s, and the next thing you know, the CDs go away, and now it's just a click and it downloads, and you've got it on your phone, and it's everywhere, and you can listen to it in your car, and I mean, I love audio. I think that's a really
yeah,
neat thing, and it's instead of taking away from the reading market, it's enhanced it and made it even bigger.
it has. And I think what we all forgot or didn't think about at the time when it was happening was not everybody got the gift of being able to read for pleasure. Most people can read, but they don't all have whatever we got blessed with, which is the gift of being able to lose themselves in a story that they read. But we all genetically possess the ability to listen to a good story.
Yeah,
That's a survival skill, and it's in our genes. I swear to gosh, it's just yeah. So it's that becomes the that becomes a very normal way to tell a story, and it is. But it also means that the writer is totally dependent on the quality of the voice that is acting the reading the book. The
100%.
yeah, and everybody who reads audio will tell you, no matter how much they loved a book, if the voice was bad, they're not going back.
Not going back. It makes I mean, you gotta be careful with who you choose as your narrator. It's really
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
That's why there's a few narrators who are just absolutely famous in their own right. Julia Whalen, Saskia Marlavart, Brittany Presley, Terry Schnabel, they are famous for their voices, and people I know a lot of people buy a Julia Whalen book. It's not about the author, it's that Julia is narrating it.
yeah. And
That's
for
powerful.
my harmony series, I've had Barbara Rosenblatt,
Yep,
and
yep.
and she's
Amazing.
just an amazing actress, and that's what it is. It's acting. It's a kind of
Yeah,
acting. Yeah, yeah.
it is. It's very cool. As usual, we've gotten way off of our path because we
We
have
have a
so
job.
many interesting things to talk about. I want to jump back to It Takes a Psychic because I think my readers who are watching this would absolutely love this series if they aren't already reading it. Tell us just a quick little thing about Leona, the para archaeologist, and Jane. What exactly are dust bunnies?
The dust bunnies have taken over my career. That's all I can. If that's this is a classic example of it seemed like a good idea at the
At the
time.
time.
And now I don't dare do a harmony novel without the dust bunnies. And for those who aren't familiar with dust bunnies, these are little. Think of one of those big fluffy English Angora rabbits, kind of yeah, all fluffy and thing, except that they're actually not vegetarians.
Nope.
So they're actually little predators. So when they're in combat mode or they're hunting or they're in protective mode, they get sleeked out, and that's when you can see the teeth. And what they say about dust bunnies on Harmony is, by the time you see the teeth, it's too late.
Too late.
So, yeah. So in my books, these have become companions of the heroine. Usually, sometimes of the hero. Um, But every one of my main characters now always has to have a dust bunny companion because that's all the readers care about.
It's clever and it's fun and it's unusual, and I think that defines you as a writer. As clever and fun and unusual, you're
Yeah, that's what it's
always
gonna.
bringing something new. You're the queen of openings. I mean, the queen of openings. That is every book of yours, no matter what pen name, that first page is stellar, and you can't help but turn the page. And that is a gift, my friend.
I just try to start the books at a place where I get excited. I think that's the only rule I use. But you are not too sloppy at this yourself. I can.
Well, I'm learning from the master.
How about this for an opening? And this is from Last Scene. I have never run so fast before. The woods are thick and impenetrable to the eye, and I stumble through, desperate for a hint of light. Trees reach out with long branches to impede my path. Rocks shift and make me skid. Bushes appear from nowhere. I have to get away. This is my only chance. So I'd say that's a pretty that's a pretty slick opening. Had me there.
Okay, I'm gonna pay you back. I'm totally paying you back here because and I'm gonna let everybody vote because, I mean, seriously, this is amazing. The dust bunny chortled from underneath a display stand. Leona Griffin paused her examination of the curiously shaped crystal object she'd just removed from one of the glass cases and looked around the heavily shadowed gallery. It had been a long evening, and the annual reception of the exclusive Antiquarian Society was far from over. In a desperate attempt to stave off boredom, she had left the crowded ballroom to check out the organization's impressive collection of paranormal antiquities. The realization that a dust bunny had found its way into the private museum was a lot more interesting than the small sculpture she'd just plucked from the case. You do, and I'm gonna, it just, you can encapsulate, these are not standalones. The Harmony series, they're not standalones. It is a series. You do have continuing characters. How do you keep it fresh after 18 books?
Well, two things. First of all, although it's part of an overarching series, I always use a new couple in every story. So there's a new background for every character. The protagonists are fresh and new for me to work with. So I get to invent new backgrounds and new histories and all that kind of good stuff. And so what stays the same is the rules of the world that I've built. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the dust bunnies. They're all and that's a chore too. You got to give each one its own little personality. um, I swear it's going to be on my grave. She wrote the Dust Bunny books. It's like me and the Cat Lady books or something.
Hey, I mean, it's a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor. You've created something that people love, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
But
How
I
did
do.
you even
But
come up with them? Where did they come from?
well, I love working with animals in the books. It's usually kind of a problem because, well, you know how it is. If you've got a character on the run, hauling a cat or a dog along with them, or it's
Yes.
plot wise, it becomes very complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but with the dust bunnies, they're so smart and so psychic that it's easier to have them m-
They're
to work.
smaller. They're more portable too.
Yeah, more portable. Yeah, yeah. Um, but I like using animals in books for the same reason other authors do, which is because it's a unique way of showing the characters' personalities. Basically
Humanizes.
how they treat their animals. Tells us so much about a person. So,
So
and
true.
yeah, I mean and the bond that you feel for the animal. I think that also shows that the character is capable of bonding, which obviously something like a sociopath is not. So, he's not a sociopath, or there's a good chance he's not a sociopath because he's good with his dog. I don't know if that's a good rule.
I did a series. It is a good role. I did a serial killer in the cold room that he's the worst. He's the worst, right? He is definitely the monster in this book is pretty bad. Gavin was pretty awful, but he had to leave a crime scene to go home and feed his cat.
Oh,
And he loved this cat. It was the only thing in his life that he loved. It was the only thing that had ever shown him any affection, any attention. It was a nature versus nurture book. It was really
Okay.
deep into that. And Gavin and his cat were, I actually saw a guy in orange Crocs and orange shorts walking out of Publix right after I wrote him. And I'm like, oh my God, that's him. That's him. And he had cat food and a bag of chicken. And I was just like, wow, it was really weird. But it can humanize even a villain if
Yeah,
you do it,
yeah,
if you do it the right way.
yeah. I think that's why we go with the animals when we can. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it does tell you something. Yeah. So,
That's so
well,
much fun. That is so much fun. So
what
readers
do you?
can jump in whenever they want because the world
Yeah,
is built. You're going to get more out of it, obviously, from starting at the beginning and watching the world's growth. But you get new characters, new people, and new Death Bunnies
yeah,
in every book.
yeah. It's a long running series, but every book is basically written as a standalone, and it has its own plot. Um, and I always write romantic suspense, which means there's always a murder mystery. So,
We wanted to talk about that. We wanted to talk about why the romantic suspense and the thriller genres are so enduring.
yeah, because the stakes are so human. I mean, everything is on a very intimate, personal level. Um, it's not just life or death. It's it's the hope thing, offering the hope
Yeah,
thing. I think, and the sense of being able to love. Um, uh, Not so much in the romantic sense, but it's a healing power. It's the healing power of love is really what anchors most of our characters that they can do it. They
yeah,
they are capable of it, um, and those are just fundamental appeals. And in the romantic suspense novel, which is what I write, and I'm convinced it's its own genre. Um, it's not just it's not just suspense with a romance on the side, and it's not just romance with a little mystery on the side. It really is its own thing because, by my definition, um, every twist in the romance has to affect the plot, the mystery underneath, and every twist in the mystery has to affect the romance. They move in lockstep, and they both need to be resolved in order for the characters to survive.
yeah, yeah.
And I work a lot with the themes based on trust because I think trust is the biggest risk we take, and we take it every day,
Mhm.
and there's no way around it. And those trust always raises the stakes.
Sorry, I got a phone call.
Oh,
Trust always raises the stakes.
yeah, but that's interesting. Is that what happens on Substack Live? If I got a call, would it interrupt like that?
Did it interrupt? Yeah, I think
No,
so.
you went away for a second, but I didn't. But I don't know I wonder what would happen on my end. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'd go away. I don't know. That was just like, I it's release day. Everybody's reaching. I've been getting texts and stuff. That was my agent calling to say,
Oh, no.
I'm sure to say happy release day because we talked yesterday. So I'm sure it's just a quick, it's funny. This is,
Okay.
for everybody who's watching this is really our first attempt at this. So we're kind of
Yeah, this is a
working
big
our way
experiment.
through.
This is
It's
an
a big
experiment.
experiment. I did not I forgot to, put do not disturb on my phone, and I was scared once we started to press any buttons and accidentally shut us off because we had a live link going, so sorry about that, guys, it is live. We are live. There's no question. I don't know, Jane, I don't know if you can see, but the hearts are, like, floating up the screen.
Oh, this is like, what did they say? Live TV back in the 50s? When
Oh my gosh. You never knew what was gonna happen, right? I'm
and he
surprised I haven't had a cat jump in my lap or a husband come in and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Yeah,
when's lunch?
when's lunch? Exactly. Um, so, with romantic suspense, that absolutely is. And then thrillers, I think, are so enduring because we need to be scared. We need to have our amygdala activated. We have not evolved past the caveman stage, right? When our lives were in constant danger and there was nobody there to help us and there were cave lions and saber-toothed tigers and mammoths and all of that. And we were in danger. We haven't evolved past that stage. We still eat meat. We still eat, vegetables and all of that. We haven't ascended to another level. So that area of our brain that worked to keep us alive in hard situations, I mean, we've got a pretty soft life now, right? We're not struggling to figure out where our next meal is coming from. We can go to a grocery store. So we need to explore that somewhere and burn off that energy, basically. I like the idea of it being, just energy that you get agitated and you have to burn off. And if you read a thriller and you get scared, or you watch a horror movie and you get scared, it activates that limbic system and it gets that energy out of your system, and you feel better at the end, right?
That's a great explanation for it. Makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I think thrillers sustain. And also, we want to have the escape, right? Romance and thrillers, when the economy goes down, the numbers for romance and thrillers go up because of the escape factor.
Interesting, yeah. Well, I do remember having a publisher once, an a particularly gritty gritty grittier than even usual, serial killer story had come out and was blowing out, top of the list. Everybody was buying the serial killer story. And I read it, and it was awful. I mean, the story was the writing was fine, but the story
Oh my
was
God.
too bloody for me, and too much cruelty. Um, and I s and I s I s and I said to the publisher, "Why are these so popular?" And he said, "Jayne, these are our generation's horror stories,
Mhm.
and everybody needs a horror story, and this is for us, this is real horror." So,
Well, and
anyhow,
now what are we going to see, in 20 years when we're looking back on this time? We're going to be seeing mass shootings in every book because that is our current horror,
yeah,
right?
good point. Yeah, yeah,
I do
yeah.
think the serial killer has transitioned into the school shooter. I think it's become popular, almost to do that instead. Those kids who go and are so unhappy, they probably in a past life wouldn't have had that outlet, and they would have, gotten older and started killing people individually instead of going out in
Could
the
be,
blaze of glory.
could be, yeah. Well, we write the thrillers and we write the suspense because the problems do get solved.
They get
The
solved and there is hope at
justice
the end.
justice is done, yeah,
Justice is served and you get a dose of hope too.
yeah. I think that's the fundamentals appeal of both genres.
I agree. Well, gosh, this has been so much fun. We should do
Yeah,
this
this is
again.
great.
I really enjoy this. We've got a lot of people. There've been some comments, but I don't know how to do it. So
Don't ask me.
yeah, we'll keep figuring it out. And I think maybe, when this post goes up, when we shut off the live, there may be some questions. I don't know. We'll see. Again, this is our first time doing this, and we're really excited to be here. You guys absolutely 100% need to go get Jayne's fantastic new book. It Takes a Psychic. I mean, it's
And
not just to have that cover. So pretty, so gorgeous.
and JT's Last Scene.
Out
Great thriller.
today. Out today.
Out today.
Thank you so much, my friend. It's wonderful to see you, and this has been a blast.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
and thank you guys for coming, and hopefully we'll do this again soon. Happy Friday.